They say power protects you from everything. Victoria Hale believed that too, until the moment a stranger stood up in a crowded cafe and told the room that women like her were finished. At 48, she'd survived boardroom coups, hostile takeovers, and a divorce that made headlines. But she wasn't ready for this. The quiet, creeping fear that maybe he was right. What she didn't expect was the single father sitting 3 tables away, about to prove that the biggest battles aren't fought in conference rooms. They're fought in moments when you're too tired to keep pretending you're fine. If you want to see how Victoria's story ends, stay with me until the final word. And when you're done, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hit Seattle like it had a grudge. Not the romantic drizzle from movies, the kind that soaked through expensive coats and made you question why anyone chose to live here. Victoria Hale stood under the awning of Morrison's Cafe, staring at the door like it might bite her. She was stalling. She knew it. The meeting inside was supposed to be informal, coffee with an old colleague, nothing more. But everything felt heavier lately, even coffee. At 48, Victoria had the kind of resume that made people shut up and listen. She'd built Hale Innovations from a garage startup into a tech empire worth $3 billion. She'd been on magazine covers. She'd given TED Talks. She'd fired men twice her size without blinking. And yet here she was, standing in the rain, afraid to walk into a cafe. She pushed the door open. The warmth inside hit her immediately. Espresso, cinnamon, the low hum of conversation. Morrison's was one of those places that tried too hard to be cozy. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, mismatched furniture that cost more than it should. Victoria scanned the room and spotted Gerald Hinton at a corner table, already halfway through a latte. Gerald was 62 and looked like he'd been born in a suit. He waved her over with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Victoria, glad you could make it." She slid into the chair across from him, shrugging off her coat. "You said it was important." "It is." He leaned back, studying her. "You look tired." "I'm fine." "You're not." Victoria's jaw tightened. She'd known Gerald for 15 years. He'd been on her board when Hale Innovations went public. He was also the kind of man who thought bluntness was the same thing as honesty. "Gerald, I didn't come here for a wellness check." "No, you came here because I told you there's a problem." He set his cup down. "The board's getting nervous." "About what?" "About you." The words landed like a slap. Victoria kept her face neutral, but her pulse kicked up. "Explain." "The Lawson deal fell through. The product launch last quarter underperformed. You've been distracted." "I've been running a company during a recession. And you've been doing it alone." Victoria's fingers curled around the edge of the table. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the board thinks it might be time to bring in a co-CEO. Someone younger. Someone who can what, Gerald? Handle the job I've been doing for 20 years? He sighed. "You're taking this personally. You're telling me I'm not good enough anymore. How the hell else am I supposed to take it? I'm telling you the optics matter. You're a woman in tech, Victoria. You're brilliant, but you're also old." Gerald flinched. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." She stood up, grabbing her coat. Gerald reached for her arm, but she pulled away. "Victoria, wait. I'll handle the board, like I always do." She walked out before he could respond. The rain had gotten worse. Victoria stood under the awning again, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. She hated that. She hated that Gerald's words had gotten to her. She hated that she couldn't just brush it off and move on. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through emails she didn't want to read. A message from her lawyer about the divorce settlement. Another from her assistant about a meeting she'd already canceled twice. A notification from a news app. Tech giant faces investor skepticism amid leadership questions. She shoved the phone back in her pocket. "Excuse me." Victoria turned. A man stood a few feet away, holding an umbrella. He was tall, dark-haired, maybe mid-40s. He wore jeans and a jacket that had seen better days. There was something careful in the way he looked at her, like he was trying not to intrude. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." Victoria's first instinct was to tell him to mind his own business. But something in his voice stopped her. It wasn't pity. It wasn't condescension. It was just genuine. "Bad meeting," she said finally. "Yeah, I know the feeling." He held out the umbrella. "You want this? I've got another one in the car." I'm not taking your umbrella. Why not? Because I don't need help from strangers. He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made him look younger. Fair enough, but for the record, I wasn't trying to help. I was just being a decent human. Victoria stared at him. Then, against her better judgment, she laughed. It was short and sharp, but it was real. Okay, she said. Fine. Give me the umbrella. He handed it over. Their fingers brushed for a second, and Victoria felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a flicker of warmth that had nothing to do with coffee or cozy cafes. Thanks, she said. No problem. He started to walk away, then paused. For what it's worth, bad meetings don't define you. People just like to think they do. He left before she could respond. Victoria stood there, holding the umbrella, watching him disappear into the rain. She went back inside. It wasn't a conscious decision. She just didn't want to go home yet. Home was an empty penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture she'd never picked out. Home was silence. Morrison's was still warm, still crowded. Victoria ordered a coffee she didn't want and sat down at a table near the window. She opened her laptop, pretending to work. Mostly, she just stared at the screen. Women like that, they're just hanging on, you know? Victoria's head snapped up. The voice came from a table behind her. She turned slightly, just enough to see the speaker, a man in his 30s wearing a tech startup hoodie and an expression that screamed overconfidence. He was talking to two other guys, both nodding along like he was making perfect sense. I mean, she's what, 50, 60? Hoodie guy continued. At some point, you've got to accept you're out of the game. Let the next generation take over. One of his friends laughed. Brutal, man. I'm just being honest. Women in tech, they've got like a 10-year window, max. After that, it's over. They can't keep up. Victoria's vision narrowed. Her coffee cup was still in her hand. She set it down carefully, because if she didn't, she was going to throw it. She should leave. She should walk out and let this idiot fade into the background noise of her life. But she didn't. She stood up, turned around, and walked over to their table. Excuse me. All three of them looked up. Hoodie guy blinked, clearly not expecting a woman in a tailored coat to be standing over him. Can I help you? He asked, his tone dripping with fake politeness. You can stop talking, Victoria said. He laughed. What? You heard me. Stop talking, because everything you just said was ignorant, sexist, and factually wrong. Hoodie guy's smile faded. Lady, I don't know who you think you are. Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Innovations. Maybe you've heard of it. The color drained from his face. Oh, he said. Yeah. Oh. Victoria leaned down, her voice low and sharp. Here's some free advice. The next time you want to talk about women being out of the game, maybe check if one of them is sitting 3 feet away. Better yet, shut up entirely. She straightened up, grabbed her coat, and walked out. The cafe was dead silent. Victoria made it halfway down the block before she realized she was shaking again. Not from anger this time, from adrenaline. From the sudden, overwhelming sense that she'd just burned a bridge she didn't even know existed. She leaned against a brick wall, closing her eyes. Hey! She looked up. It was the man from earlier, the one with the umbrella. He was standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets, looking at her like he wasn't sure if he should say anything. You were in there, Victoria said. Yeah. Did you hear all of it? He stepped closer. That guy's an idiot, by the way, in case you were wondering. Victoria let out a breath. I didn't need to do that. I should have just ignored him. Maybe. But you didn't. And honestly, that was the best thing I've seen all week. She looked at him, really looked at him this time. He had the kind of face that had lived a little. Lines around his eyes, a scar on his chin, hands that looked like they'd done real work. Why are you being nice to me? She asked. Because you looked like you needed it. I don't. Okay? They stood there in the rain, not saying anything. It should have been awkward. It wasn't. I'm Ethan, he said finally. Victoria. I know, you introduced yourself in there. She almost smiled. Right. Ethan glanced back at the cafe. You want to get out of here? There's a better place down the street, quieter, less idiots. Victoria should have said no. She should have gone home, answered emails, figured out how to deal with Gerald and the board. Instead, she said, okay. The place Ethan took her to wasn't better. It was worse. A dive bar called The Anchor that smelled like old wood and spilled beer. But it was quiet, and the bartender didn't ask questions. They sat at a corner booth. Ethan ordered a whiskey. Victoria ordered the same, even though she hated whiskey. "You don't have to drink that," Ethan said. "I know." She took a sip anyway. It burned. "So," Ethan said. "Bad day?" Victoria laughed. It came out sharper than she meant it to. "You could say that." "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Fair enough." They sat in silence. It was strange sitting with someone who didn't need her to be anything, who wasn't waiting for her to perform or strategize or prove herself. "What about you?" Victoria asked. "What's your story?" Ethan shrugged. "Not much to tell. I'm a software engineer, freelance mostly. I've got a daughter. She's 9. "What's her name?" "Lily." "Just the two of you?" "Yeah, her mom left when Lily was 3. Haven't heard from her since." Victoria studied him. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We're doing fine." "Are you?" Ethan looked at her, and for a second his guard dropped. "Most days." Victoria understood that. Most days. Not every day, but enough to keep going. "I'm divorced too," she said. 2 years now. No kids." "That's rough." "It was my choice. He wanted a family. I wanted a company. Guess which one won?" Ethan didn't say anything. He didn't need to. "I thought it would feel different," Victoria said quietly. "Building something, being successful. I thought it would be enough." "Is it?" She looked down at her glass. "No." The word hung between them. Ethan leaned back. "You know what the worst part is? People think because you're good at something, you've got it all figured out. Like success means you don't get lonely, or scared, or tired." Victoria's throat tightened. "Yeah, but you do." "Yeah." They drank in silence. An hour later, Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and groaned. "Problem?" Ethan asked. "My assistant. There's a situation at the office." "What kind of situation?" "The kind that means I need to leave." She stood up, grabbing her coat. "Thanks for the drink." "Any time." She hesitated. "I mean it. Thank you. For everything." Ethan smiled. "Get out of here, Victoria. Go fix whatever needs fixing." She left. But as she walked out into the rain, she realized something. For the first time in months, she didn't feel alone. The office was chaos. Victoria walked into Hale Innovations at 11 p.m. to find half her team still there, huddled around monitors and talking in sharp, urgent voices. Her COO, Marcus Delgado, met her at the elevator. "Tell me," Victoria said. "Cyber attack. Started 2 hours ago. They're targeting our client database." Victoria's stomach dropped. "How bad?" "Bad. If they get in, we lose everything. Customer data, proprietary algorithms, trade secrets, everything." "Who's handling it?" "Our security team, but Victoria, they're not enough. Whoever's doing this, they're good. Really good." Victoria's mind raced. "Call in outside help. I don't care what it costs." "We already tried. Everyone we trust is either unavailable or can't get here in time." She wanted to scream. Instead, she took a breath. "Then we do it ourselves. Get everyone in the conference room. I want a full breakdown in 5 minutes." Marcus nodded and disappeared. Victoria stood alone in the hallway, staring at the glass walls of her empire. Everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed for. It was all about to disappear. The conference room was standing room only. Victoria stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, listening as her lead security engineer, a 26-year-old named Priya, walked her through the attack. "They're using a distributed denial of service to overwhelm our servers while they probe for vulnerabilities," Priya said. "We've patched what we can, but they keep finding new entry points." "How long until they're in?" Victoria asked. "Best case, 6 hours. Worst case, 2. Victoria's jaw tightened. "Options?" "We shut everything down, lock the servers, cut external access, and rebuild from scratch. That'll take weeks." "Yeah, but it's the only way to guarantee they don't get in." Victoria shook her head. "No, we're not shutting down. Find another way." "Victoria, there is no other way." "Then make one." The room went quiet. Marcus leaned forward. Victoria, maybe we should. I said no. Her voice was ice. We don't shut down. We don't roll over. We fight. Priya looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at Victoria. Okay, Marcus said finally. We fight. 3 hours later, they were losing. The attack had escalated. 2 of their servers were already compromised. Priya's team was working around the clock, but it wasn't enough. Victoria sat in her office, staring at her laptop screen. The numbers didn't lie. They were out of time. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Heard you're having a rough night. Ethan. Victoria blinked. How the hell did he get her number? She typed back, understatement of the year. His response came seconds later. What's going on? She hesitated. Then, because she was too tired to care, she told him. Cyber attack. We can't stop it. I'm about to lose everything. There was a pause. Then, send me the details. Victoria frowned. What? Your server logs, firewall config, whatever you've got. Send it to me. Why? Because I might be able to help. You're a freelance engineer. Yeah, a really good one. Victoria should have said no. She should have told him this was above his pay grade and hung up. Instead, she sent him the files. But 20 minutes later, her phone rang. You're being hit by a botnet, Ethan said, skipping the pleasantries. Russian, probably. They're cycling through IP addresses to avoid detection. Your team's trying to block them one at a time, but that's not going to work. I know that, Victoria said. What do we do? You need to reroute traffic through a secondary server. Create a honeypot. Let them think they're getting in, then lock them out once they're inside. Victoria sat up. Can you do that? Yeah, but I need access to your system. She didn't hesitate. Done. Ethan worked through the night. Victoria watched from her office as he turned the attack around, line by line. He didn't just stop the hackers. He trapped them, isolated them, and shut them down so completely they wouldn't be able to try again. By 6 a.m., it was over. Victoria walked into the conference room where her team was staring at their screens in disbelief. We're clear, Priya said, her voice shaking. They're gone. Victoria exhaled. Good. Everyone go home. Get some sleep. Marcus stayed behind. Who was that? The guy who helped us? A friend, Victoria said. Some friend. She didn't disagree. Victoria called Ethan from her office. You saved my company, she said when he picked up. You're welcome. I'm serious. I don't know how to... Victoria, you don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. There was a pause. Okay, then buy me breakfast. She smiled. Deal. They met at Morrison's again. This time, Victoria didn't hesitate at the door. Ethan was already there, looking like he hadn't slept. Which, she realized, he probably hadn't. You look like hell, she said, sitting down. You're one to talk. They ordered coffee and eggs and sat in the kind of comfortable silence that felt earned. Why did you help me? Victoria asked finally. Ethan looked at her. Because you needed it, and because I could. That's it? That's it. Victoria studied him. You're a strange person, Ethan Cole. So are you, Victoria Hale. They smiled at each other. And for the first time in years, Victoria felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. The breakfast stretched into lunch. Neither of them meant for it to happen, but the conversation kept going, circling back and starting over, the way it does when two people realize they've been talking to the wrong people for too long. So let me get this straight, Ethan said, leaning back in the booth. You built a $3 billion company, but you can't figure out how to use your own coffee maker. Victoria shrugged. I have an assistant for that. That's sad. That's practical. It's both. She threw a sugar packet at him. He caught it, grinning. What about you? Victoria asked. You can dismantle a Russian botnet in 4 hours, but you're telling me you can't cook? I can cook, Ethan said defensively. I make excellent mac and cheese. From a box. It's still cooking. It's boiling water. Exactly. That's cooking. Victoria laughed, and it felt good. Easy, like something she'd forgotten how to do. Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and winced. Lily? Victoria asked. Yeah, she's with my sister today, but I need to pick her up in an hour. You should go. I should. But he didn't move. He just looked at her, his expression shifting into something more serious. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you still here? Sitting in a cafe with some random guy who gave you an umbrella? Victoria considered the question. Because I don't want to go home. Why not? Because home is just me, and I'm tired of just me. Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, I get that. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Victoria pulled out her phone. Give me your number, she said. I already have yours, remember? Yeah, but now I'm asking for yours, officially. He smiled and recited it. She saved it under Ethan, umbrella guy. Cute, he said, glancing at her screen. I thought so. He stood up, pulling on his jacket. I meant what I said earlier. You don't owe me anything, but if you ever need someone to talk to, or, I don't know, help with another cyber attack, call me. I will. I'm serious, Victoria. So am I. He hesitated, then held out his hand. She shook it, and the gesture felt oddly formal after everything they'd just shared. See you around, Ethan said. Yeah. See you. He left. Victoria watched him go, and for a second she thought about calling him back, asking him to stay. But she didn't. Instead, she sat alone in the booth, staring at her phone, feeling something she couldn't quite name. It felt like hope. That scared the hell out of her. The next week passed in a blur. Victoria threw herself back into work, because that's what she always did when things got complicated. The board meeting was in 10 days, and she needed to be ready. She needed to prove that Gerald was wrong, that the whispers about her age and her competence were just noise. But the cyber attack had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Not because of what happened, but because of how close they'd come to losing everything. And because the person who'd saved them wasn't on her payroll. He was just some guy who'd offered her an umbrella in the rain. She thought about calling Ethan. She picked up her phone a dozen times and put it back down. On the fourth day, he called her first. Hey, he said when she picked up. You busy? Always. Want to grab coffee? Victoria hesitated. I don't know if that's a good idea. Why not? Because I don't do this. Do what? Make friends, talk to people. Any of it. There was a pause. Then Ethan said, Okay. Then don't think of it as making friends. Think of it as networking. Networking. Yeah, I'm a software engineer. You run a tech company. It's professional. Victoria smiled despite herself. That's the worst excuse I've ever heard. Is it working? Maybe. So is that a yes? She sighed. Fine. Morrison's, 6 o'clock. I'll be there. He hung up before she could change her mind. Victoria stared at her phone, wondering what the hell she was doing. Then she went back to work. Morrison's was crowded when she arrived. She spotted Ethan at the same corner table from before, already halfway through a coffee. He waved her over. You're late, he said. I had a meeting. You always have a meeting. That's because I run a company. Right, networking. He grinned. Victoria sat down, shrugging off her coat. You're annoying. You keep showing up anyway. Yeah, well, I'm starting to regret that. But she wasn't. And they both knew it. They talked for an hour. About work, mostly. Ethan told her about a project he was building, some kind of security software that could predict vulnerabilities before they happened. Victoria asked questions, and he answered them with the kind of enthusiasm that reminded her why she'd gotten into tech in the first place. Not for the money or the power, but because building things mattered. You should pitch that, Victoria said. To who? To me. Ethan blinked. What? Hale Innovations. We could use something like that, especially after last week. Victoria, You're not what? Good enough? Because that's bullshit. You saved my company. You think I'm going to forget that? Ethan looked at her, and for a second, she saw something flicker in his eyes. Surprise. Maybe even gratitude. I'll think about it, he said. Think fast. I'm not patient. Yeah, I'm getting that. They smiled at each other. And then Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and cursed. Work? Ethan asked. Always. She stood up. I have to take this. Go. I'll be here. She stepped outside, answering the call. It was Marcus. We've got a problem, he said. What now? The attack last week? It wasn't random. Victoria's stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean someone targeted us, specifically, and they're not done. She closed her eyes. How do you know? Because they just sent us a message. They're threatening to release everything they stole unless we pay them $5 million. They didn't get anything. Ethan stopped them. They got in before he did. Not for long, but long enough. They have client data, Victoria. Names, addresses, financial records. If they release it, we're done. Victoria felt the ground shift under her. How long do we have? 72 hours. Don't pay them, and don't tell anyone. I'll handle this. Victoria, I said I'll handle it. She hung up and stood there, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking again. The door opened behind her. Ethan stepped out. You okay? He asked. No. What happened? She told him. All of it. The ransom, the stolen data, the 72-hour deadline. She didn't know why she was telling him. Maybe because he'd already saved her once. Maybe because she didn't have anyone else to tell. When she finished, Ethan didn't say anything. He just stood there, thinking. Can you trace them? Victoria asked. Maybe, if they're using the same infrastructure as before. Can you stop them? I don't know. Ethan, I said I don't know, Victoria. This isn't like last time. These people are smart. If they're making demands, it means they're confident. So what do I do? He looked at her. You let me help. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Why? Because you need it. He stepped closer. And because I don't want to see you lose everything you've built. Victoria's throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know enough. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him this wasn't his problem. But the truth was, she needed him. And that terrified her more than the ransom demand ever could. Okay, she said quietly. Help me. Ethan worked from her office. Victoria set him up with a laptop and full access to their systems, and then she did the hardest thing she'd ever done. She let go. She watched him work for a while, pacing behind his chair, asking questions he didn't have answers to yet. Finally, Marcus pulled her aside. Victoria, you need to let him breathe. I'm not stopping him from breathing. You're hovering. I'm overseeing. You're making him nervous. Victoria glanced back at Ethan. He didn't look nervous. He looked focused. But Marcus had a point. Fine, she said. I'll be in my office. Good. Go drink some water, eat something. You look like hell. She didn't argue, mostly because he was right. Her office felt too quiet. She sat at her desk, staring at her laptop, trying to focus on emails. But her mind kept drifting back to Ethan, to the way he'd looked at her in the cafe, to the way he'd stepped in without hesitation, even though this wasn't his fight. Her phone buzzed, a text from Gerald. Board meeting moved up. Friday. Be ready. Victoria swore under her breath. That gave her 4 days. 4 days to deal with the ransom, prepare her defense, and somehow convince a room full of skeptics that she wasn't past her prime. She texted back, I'll be ready. She didn't feel ready, but she'd learned a long time ago that confidence was just fear with better posture. Ethan found her 2 hours later. He knocked on her door, and she looked up, heart pounding. Tell me you've got something, she said. I've got something, maybe. Maybe isn't good enough. It's what I've got. He pulled up a chair and opened his laptop. The ransom message was sent through a proxy server in Estonia, but the server's just a relay. The real source is somewhere else. Can you find it? I'm trying, but these people know what they're doing. They've layered their tracks so deep, it's like peeling an onion. How long? I don't know. Could be hours. Could be days. Victoria's jaw tightened. We don't have days. I know. So what do we do? Ethan leaned back, rubbing his eyes. We keep digging, and we hope we get lucky. I don't believe in luck. Then we hope I'm really good at my job. Victoria almost smiled. You are. Yeah, I am. They worked through the night. Ethan at his laptop, Victoria pacing the office, fielding calls from Marcus and Priya and the legal team. No one asked who Ethan was or why he was there. They just accepted it, the way you accept anything in a crisis. Around 3 a.m., Ethan stood up and stretched. I need a break, he said. We don't have time for breaks. Victoria, I've been staring at code for 6 hours. If I don't take a break, I'm going to miss something. She wanted to argue, but he was right. Fine, she said. 10 minutes. They went to the break room. Ethan made coffee, badly, and they sat at the small table by the window, looking out at the city. You ever sleep? Ethan asked. Not if I can help it. That's unhealthy. So is running on caffeine and stubbornness, but here we are. He smiled. Fair point. They sat in silence for a while. Then Ethan said, Can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you care so much? About the company, I mean. You've already made it. You've already won. Why keep fighting? Victoria looked at him. Because if I stop, what do I have left? I don't know. A life? I don't have a life. I have a company. That's all I've ever had. That's not true, isn't it? She set her coffee down. I don't have kids. I don't have a partner. I don't have hobbies or friends or anything that isn't tied to Hale Innovations. If I lose this, I lose everything. Ethan studied her. You really believe that? I know it. Then you're wrong. Victoria frowned. Excuse me? You're wrong, because you're sitting here right now with me. And that's not nothing. She didn't know what to say to that, so she didn't say anything. They went back to work. By dawn, Ethan had something. Not a solution, but a lead. He'd traced the ransom message back to a server farm in Ukraine. It wasn't much, but it was progress. Can you shut them down? Victoria asked. Not yet, but I'm close. How close? Close enough that you should start hoping I'm as good as I think I am. She almost laughed. I already do. Ethan looked at her, and something passed between them. Something unspoken but undeniable. I should go, he said. Lily's going to wonder where I've been. You've been here all night. She knows that. Yeah, but I still need to be there when she wakes up. That's the deal. Victoria nodded. Go. I'll call you if anything changes. You better. He left, and Victoria sat alone in her office, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on her. The ransom. The board meeting. The fact that she'd just spent the entire night with a man she barely knew and somehow felt closer to him than anyone she'd worked with for years. She picked up her phone and stared at Ethan's number. Then she put it down and went back to work. The next 2 days were a race against time. Ethan worked remotely, sending updates every few hours. He'd narrowed the source down to 3 possible locations, but he couldn't pinpoint which one was real without more time. Time they didn't have. On the second night, Victoria called him. We need to make a decision, she said. The deadline's tomorrow. If we don't have an answer by then, I'm going to have to consider paying. Don't pay them. I don't have a choice. You do. Just give me 1 more day. I don't have 1 more day. Then give me 12 hours. Victoria closed her eyes. Ethan. 12 hours, Victoria. That's all I need. She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him it was too risky. But the truth was, she trusted him. And that was the scariest part of all. Okay, she said. 12 hours. I won't let you down. You better not. She hung up and sat in the dark, waiting. 11 hours later, Ethan called her back. I found them, he said. Victoria sat up. Where? Belarus. Small operation, maybe 3 or 4 people. They've been running scams like this for months. Hale Innovations wasn't even their only target. Can you stop them? Already did. I locked them out of their own servers and wiped the data they stole. It's gone. All of it. Victoria exhaled, and it felt like the first real breath she'd taken in days. You're sure? Positive. Ethan, I don't. You don't owe me anything, remember? Yes, I do. There was a pause. Then Ethan said, Okay, then buy me dinner. Victoria smiled. Deal. The board meeting was 2 days later. Victoria walked into the conference room at 9 a.m., feeling like she was about to face a firing squad. Gerald was already there, along with 8 other board members. They sat around the long table, faces blank, notepads open. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table and folded her hands. Let's get started, she said. Gerald cleared his throat. Victoria, I think we all know why we're here. The company's been through a difficult few months. The Lawson deal fell through. The product launch underperformed, and last week's cyber attack raised serious questions about our security infrastructure. The attack was handled, Victoria said. We didn't lose a single piece of data. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Gerald? He leaned forward. The point is that the board is concerned about your ability to lead this company moving forward. We're proposing a restructuring, a co-CEO model with you and someone younger sharing leadership responsibilities. Victoria's pulse kicked up. You want to replace me? We want to support you by bringing in someone to do my job, by bringing in someone to help you do your job. Victoria looked around the table. Most of the board members wouldn't meet her eyes. And if I say no, she asked. Then we'll vote, Gerald said. And I think you know how that vote will go. Victoria's hands clenched under the table. You're making a mistake. We're making a business decision. Based on what? One bad quarter? One attack that we stopped? Based on the fact that this company needs fresh leadership, and you're not it anymore. The words landed like a punch. Victoria stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. If you want to vote me out, do it, she said. But don't pretend this is about the company. This is about you being uncomfortable with a woman my age running the show. And that's your problem, not mine. She walked out before anyone could respond. Victoria sat in her office, shaking with anger. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. How'd it go? She stared at the message, then typed back. Not great. Want to talk? Not really. Okay, call me if you change your mind. She almost did. But instead, she pulled up her calendar and started preparing for the vote. If they wanted a fight, she'd give them one. But late that night, when the office was empty and the city was quiet, she sat alone in the dark and let herself feel it. The fear, the exhaustion, the crushing weight of fighting a battle she might not win. And for the first time in years, she cried. She woke up at her desk, neck stiff, mascara smudged under her eyes. The office was still dark. Her phone said it was 4:30 in the morning. Victoria stood up, wiping her face with the back of her hand. She looked like hell, felt worse. But she didn't have time to fall apart. The vote was in 6 hours. She went to the bathroom, washed her face, and stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was tired, older than she remembered, but she was still standing. That had to count for something. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Ethan. You up? She typed back. Unfortunately. Coffee? It's 4:30 in the morning. So that's a yes? Victoria almost smiled. Morrison's, 30 minutes. See you there. She grabbed her coat and left before she could change her mind. Morrison's wasn't open yet. Ethan was waiting outside, holding 2 paper cups from the 24-hour diner down the street. You're early, Victoria said. So are you. He handed her one of the cups. She took a sip. It was terrible coffee, but it was hot, and that was enough. They sat on the bench outside the cafe, watching the city wake up. Delivery trucks rumbled past. A jogger went by, headphones in, oblivious. The sky was starting to lighten, just barely, like the world was holding its breath. You want to talk about it? Ethan asked. Not really. Okay. They sat in silence. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was just there. Finally, Victoria said, They're going to vote me out. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I saw it in their faces. They've already made up their minds. Then change their minds. How? Ethan looked at her. By reminding them who the hell you are. Victoria let out a breath. I'm tired, Ethan. I'm so tired of fighting. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like I'm the only one who keeps losing. You're not losing. Yes, I am. I lost my marriage. I lost my 30s and 40s to a company that might not even want me anymore. I don't have kids. I don't have a family. I don't have anything except a title that a bunch of men in suits think I'm too old to keep. Ethan set his coffee down. You want to know what I see when I look at you? Not really. I see someone who built something out of nothing. Someone who didn't quit when the world told her she couldn't do it. Someone who saved my ass in a cafe because some idiot was running his mouth. You think that's nothing? You think that doesn't matter? Victoria's throat tightened. It doesn't matter if they vote me out. Then make them regret it. She looked at him. How? By walking into that room and showing them exactly what they're about to lose. Victoria wanted to believe him. She wanted to feel the fire she used to feel, the certainty that she could walk into any room and own it, but all she felt was tired. "What if I can't?" she said quietly. "Then you can't. But at least you'll know you tried." She didn't answer. She just sat there, drinking bad coffee, watching the sun come up. "Thank you," she said finally. "For what?" "For not telling me it's going to be okay." Ethan smiled. "It might not be." "I know. But you're still going to show up." "Yeah, I am." They finished their coffee in silence. Then Ethan stood up, holding out his hand. "Come on," he said. "I'll walk you back." Victoria took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. The board meeting started at 10. Victoria arrived at 9:45, dressed in the kind of suit that said she wasn't there to negotiate. She walked into the conference room, set her briefcase down, and took her seat. The board members filed in one by one. Gerald was last. He didn't look at her. At exactly 10 o'clock, Gerald called the meeting to order. "Let's get straight to it," he said. "We're here to vote on a leadership restructure. The proposal is to bring in a co-CEO to share responsibilities with Victoria, effective immediately. Before we vote, I'd like to give Victoria a chance to respond." Victoria stood up. Every eye in the room was on her. "I'll keep this brief," she said. "You're here because you think I'm not capable of running this company anymore. You think I'm too old, too out of touch, too whatever. And honestly, I get it. It's easier to replace someone than to trust them. Easier to bring in someone new than to acknowledge that maybe the problem isn't me, it's you." Gerald shifted in his seat. "Victoria, I'm not done." Her voice was steel. "Last week, this company was hit by a targeted cyber attack. We were 72 hours away from losing everything. Client data, proprietary algorithms, trade secrets, everything. And you know who stopped it? Not our security team, not some expensive consultant, a freelance engineer I met in a cafe machine. She let that sink in. "You want to talk about leadership? Fine, let's talk about it." I didn't panic. I didn't shut down the servers and cost us millions in downtime. I found someone who could fix the problem, and I gave him the tools to do it. That's leadership. And if you can't see that, then the problem isn't my age. It's your vision. The room was silent. Victoria pulled a folder from her briefcase and slid it across the table to Gerald. "Those are the Q3 projections. Revenue's up 18%. Client retention is at 92%. We've got 3 new contracts in the pipeline, worth a combined $200 million. You want to replace me? Fine. But you better find someone who can deliver those numbers." She sat down. Gerald opened the folder. His expression didn't change, but Victoria saw the flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Where did you get these numbers?" he asked. "From the same place I always do. My team. The people who actually run this company while you sit in boardrooms and second-guess me." One of the other board members, a woman named Catherine Liu, leaned forward. "Victoria, no one's questioning your results," she said. "But the optics? The optics?" Victoria cut her off. "You mean the optics of a 48-year-old woman running a tech company? Yeah, I know. It makes people uncomfortable, but that's not my problem. That's theirs." Catherine hesitated. "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is. And you know what? I'm done apologizing for it. I built this company. I saved it last week, and I'll keep saving it whether you like it or not." Gerald set the folder down. "We appreciate your passion, Victoria, but passion doesn't change the fact that the board has concerns." "Then let's vote," Victoria said. "Right now. Let's see if your concerns outweigh my results." Gerald looked around the table. No one said anything. "All in favor of the restructure," he said finally. 4 hands went up. Victoria's stomach dropped. "All opposed?" 5 hands went up. Victoria blinked. She'd won. Barely. But she'd won. Gerald's jaw tightened. "The motion fails. This meeting is adjourned." The board members filed out, most of them avoiding Victoria's eyes. Catherine paused at the door. "That took guts," she said quietly. Victoria didn't answer. She just sat there, hands shaking, trying to process what had just happened. She'd won. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a stay of execution. Victoria stayed in the conference room for a long time after everyone left. She stared at the table, at the folder Gerald had left behind, at the empty chairs. She'd fought. She'd won. But the cost was starting to sink in. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "How'd it go?" She stared at the message, then typed back. "I won." That's great. Is it? You tell me. Victoria didn't know how to answer that, so she didn't. She left the office early, which was something she never did. She went home, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat on her balcony, looking out at the city. Her phone rang. Ethan. I'm fine, she said when she picked up. I didn't ask if you were fine. Then why are you calling? Because I wanted to see if you were okay. Victoria closed her eyes. I don't know. Want to talk about it? I won the vote, Ethan. I kept my job. I should be celebrating. But you're not. No. Why not? She took a sip of wine. Because it doesn't feel like I won. It feels like I just delayed losing. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You want some company? I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm not asking if it's a good idea. I'm asking if you want company. Victoria hesitated. Then she gave him her address. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Ethan said. He hung up before she could change her mind. Ethan showed up with takeout. Chinese food, the kind that came in grease-stained paper bags and smelled better than it tasted. He set it on her kitchen counter and looked around. Nice place, he said. It's too big. Yeah, I can see that. They ate in the living room, sitting on the floor, because Victoria's furniture was the kind you looked at, but didn't actually use. Ethan opened a container of lo mein and handed her a fork. You don't use chopsticks, she asked. I'm from Kansas. We use forks. You're from Kansas? Born and raised. How did you end up in Seattle? Long story. I've got time. Ethan shrugged. Came out here for college. Met Lily's mom. Thought we were going to build a life. Then she left, and I stayed because Lily needed stability. That's it. Not very exciting. It's honest. Yeah, it is. They ate in silence for a while. Then Victoria said, Thank you. For what? For showing up. For this. She gestured at the takeout. I don't have a lot of people who just show up. You should. Yeah, well, that's the price of success, I guess. Ethan looked at her. That's a shitty price. It's the one I paid. Doesn't mean it was worth it. Victoria didn't answer. Because he was right. They finished eating, and Ethan helped her clean up. Then they sat on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Sure. Do you regret it? Building the company. Choosing it over everything else. Victoria thought about it. I don't know. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I think I traded everything that mattered for something that doesn't matter at all. And other times? Other times I think it was the only thing I knew how to do. Ethan nodded. Yeah, I get that. They sat in silence, and then Ethan said, You want to meet Lily? Victoria turned to look at him. What? Lily, my daughter. You want to meet her? Why? Because I think you'd like her. And because I think she'd like you. Victoria's chest tightened. Ethan, I don't know if... You don't have to decide now. Just think about it. Okay. Okay. He left an hour later. Victoria stood in the doorway watching him go, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. The next few weeks were strange. Victoria threw herself back into work, because that's what she always did. But something had shifted. She found herself checking her phone more often, waiting for texts from Ethan. They talked almost every day, sometimes about work, sometimes about nothing. He sent her pictures of Lily's drawings. She sent him articles about cybersecurity she thought he'd find interesting. It was easy, comfortable, and that scared her, because comfort meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant risk. But she kept texting him anyway. 3 weeks after the board meeting, Ethan called her on a Saturday morning. You busy? He asked. Always. Want to not be busy? Victoria smiled. What do you have in mind? Lily wants to go to the aquarium. I thought maybe you'd want to come. Victoria's breath caught. Ethan, I know it's weird, but she's been asking about you. You told her about me? Yeah, I told her you're a friend. And she wants to meet me? She wants to meet the lady who runs a company and yelled at a guy in a cafe. I may have told her that story. Victoria laughed despite herself. You're ridiculous. Is that a yes? She should have said no. She should have told him this was moving too fast, that she didn't do kids or families or any of it. But she didn't. Okay, she said. I'll come. Great, I'll pick you up at 10. He hung up before she could panic. Ethan showed up at 9:55 with Lily in the back seat. She was small for 9, with dark hair pulled into a ponytail and her father's eyes. She waved at Victoria through the window. Victoria climbed into the front seat, suddenly feeling like she'd made a huge mistake. "Hi," Lily said from the back. "Hi," Victoria said. "You're the lady who yelled at the mean guy." Victoria glanced at Ethan. He shrugged. "Yeah," Victoria said. "That's me. That's cool. I wish I could yell at mean people." "Maybe don't make that your life goal," Ethan said. "Why not? Victoria did it." Victoria couldn't help it. She laughed. The aquarium was crowded. Families everywhere, kids running between exhibits, parents looking exhausted. Victoria felt out of place, like she'd stepped into someone else's life. But Lily grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the jellyfish tank, and suddenly, it didn't matter. "Look at that one," Lily said, pointing. "It's glowing." "It's bioluminescent," Victoria said. "What's that mean?" "It means it makes its own light." Lily's eyes went wide. "That's so cool." They spent 2 hours wandering the aquarium. Lily asked a million questions, and Victoria answered as many as she could. Ethan hung back, watching them with an expression Victoria couldn't quite read. At the touch tank, Lily convinced Victoria to pet a sea cucumber. "It's squishy," Lily said. "It's disgusting," Victoria said. "But you did it anyway." "Yeah, I did," Lily grinned. "You're brave." Victoria's chest tightened. "Thanks, kid." On the drive home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat. Ethan glanced at Victoria. "That wasn't so bad, was it?" he asked. "It was terrifying." "But you survived." "Barely." He smiled. "She likes you." "How can you tell?" "Because she held your hand. She doesn't do that with everyone." Victoria looked back at Lily, curled up in her booster seat, mouth slightly open. She looked so small, so trusting. "She's a good kid," Victoria said. "Yeah, she is." They pulled up to Victoria's building. Ethan put the car in park but didn't turn off the engine. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Thanks for inviting me." "I mean it, Victoria. Today meant a lot. To both of us." Victoria didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. She got out of the car, and Ethan drove away. Victoria stood on the sidewalk watching them go, feeling something she couldn't name. It felt like hope, and it felt like fear. That night, Victoria couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Lily's hand in hers, about Ethan's smile, about the way it had felt to be part of something that wasn't work. She picked up her phone and stared at Ethan's number. Then she typed a message. "Today was good. Thank you." His response came almost immediately. "Anytime. Lily's already asking when you can come over for dinner." Victoria smiled. "Tell her I'll check my schedule." "She's 9. She doesn't care about your schedule." "Then tell her soon." "I will." Victoria set her phone down and closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she fell asleep without dreading the morning. The next month passed in a blur. Victoria saw Ethan and Lily almost every weekend. They went to the park, to movies, to dinner at cheap places Lily picked because she liked the crayons. Victoria found herself looking forward to Saturdays in a way she never had before. Work was still work. The board was still watching her, but it didn't feel as suffocating anymore. And then everything fell apart. It started with an email, anonymous, sent to the board and half the executive team. The subject line was simple: conflict of interest. Inside was a photo. Victoria and Ethan sitting on her balcony, laughing. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. Below the photo was a single line. "Is this who's making decisions for Hale Innovations?" Victoria stared at the screen, her blood going cold. Her phone rang. Marcus. "Please tell me you've seen this," he said. I've seen it." "Victoria, what the hell is going on?" "Nothing. It's nothing. It doesn't look like nothing. The board's freaking out. Gerald's already calling for another meeting." Victoria closed her eyes. "When?" "Monday. You've got 48 hours to figure out what you're going to say." "I'll handle it." "You better." He hung up. Victoria sat at her desk, staring at the photo. It was innocent, just 2 people talking, but she knew how it looked. She knew what people would say. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "You okay?" "Marcus just called me." Victoria's hands were shaking. She typed back, "We need to talk." "I'm coming over." "No, not here. Morrison's. 1 hour." "Okay." She grabbed her coat and left before anyone could stop her. Ethan was already waiting when she arrived. He stood up as she walked in, his face tight with worry. "What's going on?" he asked. Victoria handed him her phone. He looked at the photo, then at the email, then back at her. "Who sent this?" he asked. "I don't know, but it doesn't matter. The board's seen it. They think we're—" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. "They think we're what? Together?" "Yes." Ethan set the phone down. "Are we?" Victoria froze. "What?" "Are we together, Victoria? Because I need to know where we stand." I don't know." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Ethan looked at her and she saw the hurt in his eyes. "You know what? Forget it. This was a mistake." "Ethan, no. You don't get to do this. You don't get to pull me into your life, introduce me to your world, let me think that maybe we're building something, and then act like I'm the problem when it gets complicated. That's not what I'm doing." "Yes, it is. You're scared. I get it. But don't punish me for that." Victoria's chest tightened. "I'm not scared." "Yes, you are. You're terrified. Because for the first time in your life, you care about something that isn't work, and you don't know how to handle it. That's not fair, isn't it?" They stared at each other. The cafe around them faded into background noise. "I have a board meeting on Monday," Victoria said finally. "They're going to ask me about you, about us. And I don't know what to tell them. Tell them the truth." "Which is what?" "That you're allowed to have a life. That who you spend time with is none of their business. That you're not going to apologize for being human." Victoria shook her head. "You don't understand. If I do that, I lose everything. Or maybe you finally get everything." She didn't answer. She just stood there, feeling the weight of the choice pressing down on her. "I need to go," she said. "Victoria, I'm sorry, Ethan. I need to think." She walked out before he could stop her. And for the second time that month, she sat alone in her penthouse and cried. Sunday morning came with rain. Again. Victoria stood at her window, watching the city blur through the glass, and wondered if Seattle ever got tired of being wet. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's face, the hurt, the anger, the truth she didn't want to admit. Her phone sat on the counter, silent. No texts, no calls, nothing. She'd ruined it. Whatever they'd been building, she'd destroyed it in one conversation. Because that's what she did. She built things, and then she burned them down before they could burn her first. Victoria picked up her phone and stared at Ethan's name. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Then she set it down. Not yet. First, she had to figure out what she was going to say to the board. Marcus called at noon. "Tell me you have a plan," he said. "I'm working on it." "That's not reassuring." "I know," Marcus sighed. "Victoria, I need you to be honest with me. Are you involved with this guy?" Victoria closed her eyes. "It's complicated." "That's a yes." "It's not. We're not." She stopped. "I don't know what we are." "Well, you better figure it out, because Gerald's already drafting a statement about leadership accountability and professional conduct. He's going to use this to push you out. Let him try." "Victoria," I said, "let him try, Marcus. I'm not running anymore." There was a long pause. Then Marcus said, "Okay, but you need to be ready for Monday. This isn't going to be like last time." "I know." "Do you? Because last time you had numbers on your side. This time, you've got a scandal." "It's not a scandal. It's a photo." "It's a photo of you with a man who's not affiliated with the company, taken at your home, at night. You know what that looks like." "I know what people want it to look like." "Same thing." Victoria's jaw tightened. "I'll be ready." "I hope so." He hung up. Victoria stood there, phone in hand, feeling the walls close in. She'd spent 20 years building a reputation. One photo was about to destroy it, unless she fought back. She opened her laptop and started writing. By Sunday night, Victoria had a speech. It was good, strong, the kind of thing that would make people sit up and listen, but it wasn't honest. She deleted it and started over. This time, she wrote the truth. About Ethan. About what he meant to her. About the fact that she was allowed to be more than just a CEO. She finished at 2 a.m, read it through once, and knew she couldn't say it. Because saying it meant admitting she cared. and caring meant losing. She deleted that version too. Monday morning, Victoria walked into Hale Innovations at 8:30. The office was quieter than usual. People looked at her, then looked away. Word had spread. She went straight to her office and closed the door. At 9, Marcus knocked. "You ready?" he asked. "No?" "Me neither." He handed her a coffee. "For what it's worth, I think this is bullshit." "Thanks, Marcus. But you need to be smart today. Don't give them ammunition." "I won't." "Victoria, I mean it. Don't let your emotions get in the way." She looked at him. "When have I ever?" Marcus didn't answer. He just left. The board meeting started at 10. Victoria walked in to find the same faces, the same table, the same tension. But this time, there was something new. A folder in front of Gerald's seat. Thick, official looking. Victoria sat down and folded her hands. Gerald didn't waste time. "Victoria, I'm sure you know why we're here. A photograph surfaced this weekend showing you in what appears to be a personal relationship with an outside contractor. Given the sensitive nature of his work with the company, the board has concerns about conflicts of interest and professional judgment." Victoria kept her face neutral. "What's in the folder, Gerald?" He blinked. "Excuse me?" "The folder in front of you. What's in it?" Gerald hesitated, then opened it. "An independent review of your relationship with Mr. Cole. Timeline, interactions, financial transactions." "You investigated him." "We investigated the situation." Victoria's blood went cold. "You had no right." "We have every right. You brought an unvetted contractor into our systems during a crisis. You gave him access to proprietary data. And now we find out you're personally involved with him. That's a problem, Victoria." "He saved this company." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" Gerald leaned forward. "The point is that your personal life is affecting your professional judgment, and the board can't allow that to continue." Victoria stood up. "You want to talk about professional judgment? Fine. Let's talk about it. Ethan Cole stopped a cyber attack that would have bankrupted this company. He traced the hackers, shut them down, and didn't charge us a dime. And you're sitting here questioning my judgment because I had coffee with him on my balcony? It's more than coffee, Victoria, and you know it." "You're right. It is more than coffee. It's friendship. It's respect. It's two people who actually give a damn about each other, and I'm not going to apologize for that." Catherine Liu spoke up. "Victoria, no one's asking you to apologize, but you have to understand how this looks." "How what looks?" "How it looks that I have a life outside this office. How it looks that I'm not married to my job 24/7. How it looks that I'm human." "That's not fair," Catherine said. "Isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, the only thing I did wrong was let someone in. And apparently that's a fireable offense." Gerald's voice was ice. "You're being dramatic." "I'm being honest. For the first time in 20 years, I'm being completely honest. You want me to be some kind of robot? No feelings? No relationships? No life? Just work. And I did that. For decades. I gave you everything. My marriage, my 30s, my 40s. And it still wasn't enough. So now you're going to punish me for trying to have something more?" The room was silent. Victoria sat back down. "Ask me what you really want to ask, Gerald." "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do. You want to know if I'm in love with him." Gerald's face went pale. "Victoria." "Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? Not conflict of interest, not professional judgment. You're uncomfortable with the idea that a woman my age might actually have someone who cares about her, someone who sees her as more than just a CEO. That's not... Save it." Victoria's voice was quiet but firm. "I know what this is, and I'm done pretending it's anything else." She pulled out her own folder. Thinner than Gerald's, but just as official. "These are the contracts Ethan helped us secure. 3 deals worth $200 million combined. He didn't ask for credit. He didn't ask for payment. He just did the work because I asked him to. And you're going to sit here and tell me that's a conflict of interest?" Gerald opened the folder. His expression shifted. "You're also going to find a letter from our legal team," Victoria continued. "Ethan signed an NDA. He waived any claim to proprietary information. He did everything by the book. So unless you can prove he did something wrong, you've got nothing." Catherine looked at Gerald. "Is this true?" Gerald didn't answer. Victoria stood up again. I'm going to make this very simple. You want to vote me out? Do it. But don't hide behind some manufactured scandal. Own it. Admit that the real problem is that you don't like the fact that I'm not alone anymore, that I found someone who makes me happy, that I chose to have a life instead of just a career. Victoria, sit down, Gerald said. No. I'm done sitting down. I'm done being quiet. I'm done apologizing for being human. You want my resignation? You've got it. But I'm not going to stand here and let you pretend this is about anything other than your own discomfort. She grabbed her briefcase and walked to the door. Victoria, wait, Catherine said. Victoria turned. Don't leave, Catherine said. Not like this. Why not? Because we need you. Victoria laughed. It was sharp and bitter. No, you don't. You need a CEO who'll do what you say and never ask questions. That's not me. It never has been. She walked out. The hallway was empty. Victoria made it halfway to her office before her legs gave out. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard, feeling like she'd just run a marathon. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. What the hell just happened? Victoria didn't answer. She just kept walking. She made it to her office, closed the door, and sat down at her desk. Her hands were shaking. She'd just quit. After 20 years, she'd walked out of a board meeting and quit. She should have felt devastated. She should have felt like she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. Instead, she felt free. Her phone rang. Ethan. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she answered. Hey, she said. I heard. How? Marcus called me. He said you walked out. Victoria closed her eyes. Yeah, I did. Why? Because I was tired of fighting the wrong battle. There was a pause. Then Ethan said, Are you okay? I don't know. You want me to come over? No, I need to figure some things out. Okay. Ethan? Yeah? I'm sorry for Saturday, for everything I said. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. You were right. I was scared. I am scared, but that's not your fault. Ethan's voice was soft. I know. I don't know what happens next, Victoria said. I don't know if I just destroyed my career or if I did the right thing, but I know I couldn't keep pretending. Pretending what? That you don't matter to me. The line went quiet. Victoria, let me finish. Please. She took a breath. I've spent my whole life building walls, keeping people out, telling myself that if I just worked hard enough, if I just succeeded enough, it would be enough. But it wasn't. It never was. And then you showed up with your stupid umbrella and your ridiculous daughter and your kindness. And I didn't know what to do with that, because kindness isn't something I'm good at accepting. You're doing okay right now, Ethan said. Victoria smiled through tears she didn't know she was crying. I'm a mess. Yeah, you are. Thanks. But you're my mess, if you want to be. Victoria's breath caught. What? You heard me. I'm not asking you to have all the answers, Victoria. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking if you want to try. With me. With Lily. With all of it. Victoria closed her eyes. I don't know how. Neither do I. But we'll figure it out. What if I screw it up? Then you screw it up, and we deal with it. Together. Victoria wiped her face. You're too good for me. Probably. But you're stuck with me anyway. She laughed. It came out wet and broken, but it was real. Okay, she said. Okay, what? Okay, let's try. All of it. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already in the car. The line went dead. Victoria sat there, phone in hand, feeling like the ground had shifted under her. She'd just quit her job. She'd just told Ethan she wanted to try. She'd just admitted she didn't have all the answers. And somehow, that felt okay. Ethan showed up 20 minutes later with Lily. Victoria opened the door to find them both standing in the hallway, rain-soaked and smiling. What are you doing here? Victoria asked, looking at Lily. Dad said you had a bad day, Lily said. So we brought ice cream. Ethan held up a grocery bag. Rocky Road. Figured you could use it. Victoria's throat tightened. You didn't have to do that. We know, Lily said, but we wanted to. Victoria stepped aside and let them in. They sat on her living room floor, eating ice cream straight from the carton, and for the first time in weeks, Victoria didn't think about work. She didn't think about the board or Gerald or what came next. She just sat there, listening to Lily talk about school and watching Ethan smile and let herself be happy. Around 8, Lily fell asleep on the couch. Ethan covered her with a blanket and sat down next to Victoria. "You okay?" he asked. "I quit my job today." "I know. I don't know what I'm going to do now." "You'll figure it out." Victoria looked at him. "How are you so calm about this?" "Because I've been where you are. Lost, scared, not knowing what comes next, and I survived. You will too." "What if I don't?" "Then I'll be here to help you figure it out." Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're really okay with this? With me being a disaster?" "Victoria, you're not a disaster. You're just human." "Same thing." Ethan laughed quietly. "Maybe, but I like humans." They sat in silence for a while. Then Victoria said, "I meant what I said earlier, about wanting to try." "I know. But I need you to know something." "What?" "I'm going to screw this up, probably more than once. I don't know how to do relationships. I don't know how to be someone's whatever we are. And I'm going to be bad at it." Ethan turned to look at her. "You think I'm good at this?" "You seem like you are." "I'm not. I'm just as lost as you, but I show up anyway. That's all we can do." Victoria nodded. "Okay. Okay." He kissed her. It was soft and tentative, like he was asking a question. Victoria kissed him back and it felt like an answer. When they pulled apart, Victoria was crying again. "Sorry," she said, wiping her eyes. "I don't usually do this." "Do what?" "Cry, feel things, any of it." "You're doing great." "I'm a mess." "I know, I said that already." Victoria laughed, and then she kissed him again, because she didn't know what else to do. The next morning, Victoria woke up on her couch with Lily asleep on one side and Ethan asleep on the other. Sunlight was streaming through the windows, and for a moment she didn't remember why she felt so light. Then it hit her. She'd quit. She'd walked away from Hale Innovations, and she didn't regret it. Her phone buzzed, a text from Catherine Liu. "We need to talk. Call me." Victoria stared at the message. Then she set her phone down. Not yet. First, she needed coffee. She carefully extracted herself from the couch and went to the kitchen. Her coffee maker sat on the counter, unused and intimidating. She stared at it for a long moment. Then Ethan appeared behind her. "You want help with that?" he asked. "I can figure it out." "You've been staring at it for 3 minutes." "I'm thinking." "You're overthinking." Victoria sighed. "Fine, help me." Ethan showed her how to use the machine. It was embarrassingly simple. "You're telling me I could have been doing this the whole time?" Victoria asked. "Yep." "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because you never asked." They made coffee together, and it felt absurdly domestic, normal, like something people did every day without thinking about it. Victoria liked it more than she wanted to admit. Lily woke up around 9, groggy and confused. "Why are we at Victoria's house?" she asked. "Because we had a sleepover," Ethan said. "Cool. Can we have pancakes?" Victoria blinked. "I don't have pancake mix." "Then we'll go get some," Ethan said. "Come on." They went to the grocery store, all 3 of them. Victoria pushed the cart while Lily threw random things in it, and Ethan tried to maintain some semblance of a shopping list. People stared. Victoria noticed. A woman in an expensive coat, a man in jeans, and a 9-year-old girl who couldn't stop talking. They didn't look like they belonged together, but they were. And that was enough. Back at the apartment, Ethan made pancakes. Lily helped. Victoria supervised, which mostly meant standing in the corner and trying not to set anything on fire. "You're terrible at this," Lily said. "I'm aware." "It's okay. Dad's good enough for both of you." Victoria laughed. "Yeah, he is." After breakfast, Ethan took Lily home. Victoria stood in the doorway, watching them leave, and felt the emptiness settle back in. But it was different this time, because she knew they'd come back. Her phone rang, Catherine again. Victoria answered. "I'm glad you finally picked up," Catherine said. "What do you want, Catherine?" "To talk. About yesterday." "There's nothing to talk about. I quit." "Actually, you didn't." Victoria frowned. "What?" "You walked out." You didn't formally resign, which means you're still technically employed. I don't want to be. Victoria, listen to me. The board met after you left. We voted. On what? On Gerald's proposal. It failed. 7-2. Victoria sat down. What? We voted against the restructure, against the investigation, against all of it. You won. I walked out. And we voted anyway because you were right about everything. Gerald overstepped. The investigation was unethical. And the board knows it. Victoria didn't know what to say. We want you to stay, Catherine said. On your terms. No co-CEO. No oversight. Just you running the company the way you've always run it. And if I say no, then we'll respect that. But I hope you won't. Victoria closed her eyes. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. But Victoria? Yeah? For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For everything. Catherine hung up. Victoria sat there, staring at her phone, feeling the weight of the decision settle over her. She'd fought for this. For 20 years, she'd fought to keep her company, to prove she was good enough, to earn a seat at a table that didn't want her, and now they were offering it back. But did she still want it? She didn't know. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Lily wants to know if you'll come to dinner on Friday. I want to know if you're okay. Victoria smiled. She typed back, yes to both. Then she set her phone down and stared out the window at the city she'd spent her whole life trying to conquer. Maybe it was time to stop conquering. Maybe it was time to just live. But first, she had to figure out what that meant. Victoria spent 3 days thinking. She didn't go to the office. She didn't answer emails. She just sat in her apartment, staring at the city, trying to figure out what she actually wanted. The answer should have been simple. She'd built Hale Innovations from nothing. It was her legacy, her proof that she mattered. Walking away would mean admitting that 20 years of sacrifice had been for something she no longer believed in. But staying would mean going back to the fight, back to the board meetings and the skepticism and the constant need to prove herself, back to being alone in a room full of people who saw her as a problem to solve. She didn't know which option scared her more. On the third day, Ethan showed up unannounced. You've been hiding, he said when she opened the door. I've been thinking. Same thing. Victoria let him in. He looked around the apartment, taking in the unwashed coffee cups and the laptop she hadn't opened in 72 hours. You look like hell, he said. Thanks. I'm serious, Victoria. When's the last time you ate? She couldn't remember. I'm fine. No, you're not. He went to the kitchen and started opening cabinets. You've got no food in here. I have coffee. Coffee's not food. It's close enough. Ethan turned around, hands on his hips. Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to order takeout. You're going to eat it. And then we're going to talk about whatever the hell is going on in your head. Sound good? Victoria wanted to argue, but she was too tired. Fine, she said. They ate Thai food on her balcony. The rain had stopped for once, and the city stretched out below them, glittering and indifferent. Catherine called me, Victoria said after a while. I figured. They want me back. Full control. No oversight. Everything I fought for. Ethan set down his fork. And I don't know if I want it anymore. Why not? Victoria looked at him. Because I'm tired, Ethan. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of proving myself. I'm tired of being alone in a room full of people who are supposed to be on my side. Then don't go back. It's not that simple. Why not? Because if I don't go back, what do I have? This company is everything I've ever worked for. It's my whole life. Ethan leaned back. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Victoria, you've got me. You've got Lily. You've got a future that doesn't have to look like your past. That's not nothing. Victoria's throat tightened. What if it's not enough? Then it's not. But you won't know unless you try. She stared out at the city. I don't know how to try. I don't know how to be someone who doesn't work 80 hours a week. I don't know how to be normal. Nobody's normal. That's the point. Victoria almost smiled. You make it sound easy. It's not easy. It's terrifying. But it's also the only thing worth doing. They sat in silence. Then Victoria said, What would you do if you were me? Ethan thought about it. I'd ask myself what I'd regret more, walking away from the company or walking away from the life I could have if I let myself. And if I don't know the answer? Then you're not ready to decide. And that's okay. Victoria nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. But I need to figure it out soon. Catherine's waiting. Then let her wait. This is your life, Victoria, not hers. He was right, but that didn't make the decision any easier. Friday came faster than Victoria expected. She showed up at Ethan's apartment at 6, holding a bottle of wine she'd bought because she didn't know what else to bring. Lily opened the door, grinning. "You came," she said. "I said I would." "Dad said you might change your mind." Victoria glanced at Ethan, who was standing in the kitchen, looking sheepish. "I said you might be busy," he corrected. "Same thing," Lily said. The apartment was small. One bedroom, a living room that doubled as a dining room, a kitchen that barely fit 2 people. It was nothing like Victoria's penthouse, but it felt lived in, warm, real. Dinner was spaghetti. Ethan had made it from scratch, and it was better than Victoria expected. "This is really good," she said. "Don't sound so surprised," Ethan said. "I didn't know you could cook." "I told you I could. You said you could make mac and cheese." "This is basically fancy mac and cheese," Lily giggled. "It's spaghetti, Dad." "Tomato mac and cheese," Victoria laughed, and it felt good. Easy, like something she could get used to. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Victoria her room. It was small, painted pink, with posters of animals and a bookshelf overflowing with chapter books. "This is my favorite," Lily said, pulling out a worn copy of something called The One and Only Ivan. "What's it about?" Victoria asked. "A gorilla who lives in a mall. It's sad, but also happy." Sounds complicated. It is, but that's what makes it good. Victoria sat on the edge of Lily's bed, watching her flip through the pages, and felt something settle in her chest, something she couldn't name but recognized anyway. It felt like belonging. Later, after Lily went to bed, Victoria and Ethan sat on the couch, drinking the wine she'd brought. "She likes you," Ethan said. "I like her too. She wants to know if you're going to be around more." Victoria looked at him. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I hoped so." Victoria's chest tightened. "Ethan, you don't have to answer that right now. I'm just telling you what she said. And what you said." "Yeah, and what I said." Victoria took a sip of wine. "I'm scared." "I know. What if I'm not good at this? At being whatever this is?" "Then you're not good at it, and we figure it out anyway." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Victoria set her glass down. "I don't want to hurt her, or you." "You won't." "You don't know that." "No, but I trust you anyway." Victoria looked at him, and something broke open inside her, something she'd been holding closed for years. "I want to stay," she said quietly. "Here?" "Yes. With you. With Lily. I want to try." Ethan's face softened. "Yeah? Yeah?" He kissed her. And this time it didn't feel like a question. It felt like a promise. Monday morning, Victoria called Catherine. "I'm coming back," she said. Catherine exhaled. "Thank God. But I have conditions." "Of course you do." Victoria smiled. "I want Gerald off the board. I want full autonomy over hiring and strategy. And I want the company to fund a new initiative." "What kind of initiative?" "A mentorship program for women in tech, especially women over 40. There was a pause. "That's a big ask, Victoria." "I know, but if you want me back, that's the deal. I'll talk to the board." "You do that." Victoria hung up and sat back in her chair. She didn't know if they'd agree, but for the first time she didn't care. She'd asked for what she wanted, and that was enough. Catherine called back 2 hours later. "The board agreed," she said. "All of it, including Gerald." Victoria blinked. "He's stepping down?" "He's retiring, effective immediately. Apparently he's been thinking about it for a while." Victoria didn't believe that for a second, but she didn't argue. "When do I start?" she asked. "Whenever you're ready. Tomorrow." "Victoria, you don't have to—" "Tomorrow," Victoria repeated. "I'm ready." She hung up and stared at her phone. She'd won. Again. But this time it felt different. This time it felt like she'd won something that actually mattered. Walking back into Hale Innovations felt surreal. People looked at her differently. Some with respect. Some with curiosity. Some with something that looked like relief. Marcus met her at the elevator. "You're back," he said. "I'm back." "Good. We need you." "I know." They walked to her office together. Someone had cleaned it. Fresh flowers sat on her desk, and her laptop was open, waiting. Victoria sat down and took a breath. "Okay," she said. "Let's get to work." The next few weeks were a blur. Victoria threw herself into the mentorship program, building it from the ground up. She interviewed candidates, secured funding, and drafted a curriculum that actually meant something. It was hard. Harder than running the company in some ways, because it wasn't about profits or quarterly reports. It was about people, about giving them the tools to succeed in a world that didn't want them to. But it mattered, and that made all the difference. Ethan helped. He didn't have to, but he did. He built the website, set up the application system, and even sat in on interviews when Victoria needed a second opinion. "You're good at this," she told him one night. "So are you." "I'm serious. You should do this full time." Ethan looked at her. "What? Work for you?" "Work with me. There's a difference." He thought about it. "Let me talk to Lily." "Take your time." 2 days later, he said yes. 3 months after Victoria walked back into Hale Innovations, the mentorship program launched. They started with 20 women, all of them over 40, all of them brilliant, all of them told at some point that they were too old, too slow, too out of touch. Victoria stood in front of them on the first day and told them the truth. "This industry doesn't want you," she said. "It's going to try to convince you that you don't belong, that you're past your prime, that your best years are behind you. And I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Your best years are right now because you've lived, you've failed, you've learned. And that makes you more valuable than any 25-year-old with a degree and no experience." The room was silent. "So here's the deal," Victoria continued. "We're going to give you the tools, the training, the network. But the rest is up to you. You have to show up. You have to fight. You have to believe you're worth it, because you are." One of the women raised her hand. "What if we fail?" Victoria smiled. "Then you fail, and you get back up. That's the job." The program was a success. Within 6 months, 15 of the original 20 women had found jobs. 2 started their own companies. 3 became consultants. Victoria watched them succeed, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she'd built something that mattered more than money. But the board wasn't done testing her. 6 months after her return, they brought in a new proposal. A merger with a larger firm. It would triple the company's value, make everyone rich, and strip Victoria of most of her control. The board was split. Half wanted the merger, half wanted to stay independent, and they were waiting for Victoria to cast the deciding vote. She called a meeting. The conference room was packed. Board members, executives, lawyers, everyone waiting to see what she'd do. Victoria stood at the head of the table and looked at their faces. "I know what you want me to say," she said. "You want me to take the deal, cash out, walk away rich and happy. And 6 months ago, I probably would have." She paused. "But I'm not going to. Because this company isn't about money. It's about people. The people who work here. The people we serve. The people we're trying to help. And selling out to the highest bidder doesn't serve them. It serves us. And I'm done serving myself." Gerald's replacement, a man named Thomas, leaned forward. "Victoria, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." "I know, and I'm saying no. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make." The vote was close, but it went Victoria's way. The merger fell through. Half the board was furious, the other half was relieved, and Victoria didn't care either way. Because she'd finally learned the difference between winning and succeeding. A year after everything fell apart and came back together, Victoria stood in Morrison's cafe with Ethan and Lily. It was a Saturday morning, and the place was crowded, just like the first time she'd walked in. But this time, she wasn't alone. "I still can't believe you come here," Lily said, sipping her hot chocolate. "Why not?" Victoria asked. "Because it's kind of gross." Ethan laughed. "She's not wrong." Victoria smiled. "It's got character." "That's what people say when something's gross," Lily said. They sat at the same corner table where Victoria and Ethan had first talked. The same table where she'd confronted that stranger and felt small. The same table where everything had started. "You okay?" Ethan asked, noticing her expression. "Yeah, just thinking." About what? About how different everything is. Good different or bad different? Victoria looked at him, at Lily, at the life they'd built together in the cracks of everything she'd thought she wanted. Good different, she said. Lily finished her hot chocolate and stood up. Can I get a cookie? Sure, Ethan said, handing her a few dollars. She ran off to the counter, leaving Victoria and Ethan alone. You ever regret it? Ethan asked quietly. Saying no to the merger? Staying instead of cashing out? Victoria thought about it. No, I don't. Even though you could have been set for life? I'm already set for life. I just didn't know it until I had something worth living for. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. You're getting sentimental in your old age. Victoria laughed. I'm 48, not 80. Still old. You're 43. Exactly. Ancient. They smiled at each other. And Victoria realized something. She was happy. Not the kind of happy that came from winning or succeeding or proving herself. The kind of happy that came from being known, from being loved, from being enough exactly as she was. Lily came back with 3 cookies. I got one for everyone, she said. Thanks, kid, Victoria said. They ate cookies and talked about nothing important. School, work, a movie Lily wanted to see. And Victoria let herself be present, not thinking about the next meeting or the next crisis or the next battle. Just there, in a crowded cafe, with 2 people who saw her as more than a CEO. As they were leaving, Victoria paused at the door. She looked back at the table where she'd sat alone a year ago, tired and angry, and convinced she'd lost everything that mattered. She'd been wrong. She hadn't lost anything. She'd just finally figured out what mattered in the first place. You coming? Ethan asked, holding the door. Victoria turned back to him and smiled. Yeah, I'm coming. They walked out into the rain together. And for once, Victoria didn't mind getting wet. 6 months later, Victoria stood at the front of a conference room, looking out at a group of 50 women. The mentorship program had grown, doubled, and it showed no signs of slowing down. I want to tell you something, she said. When I started this company, I thought success meant being the best, being the smartest, being the one who won. And I spent 20 years chasing that. I gave up everything for it. My marriage, my friendships, my chance at a family. And you know what I learned? She paused. Success doesn't mean anything if you're alone. It doesn't matter how much money you make or how many awards you win or how many magazine covers you're on. If you don't have people who see you, really see you, then you've got nothing. One of the women raised her hand. So what do we do? Victoria smiled. You build a life that's bigger than your career. You let people in. You stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be real. And you remember that your worth isn't tied to your productivity. You're valuable because you exist, not because of what you produce. The room was quiet. I know that's hard to hear, Victoria continued. I know this world tells you the opposite, but I'm telling you the truth. Your life doesn't end at 40 or 50 or 60. It just starts looking different, and different can be good, if you let it. After the session ended, a woman approached her. She was in her late 40s with graying hair and tired eyes. Thank you, she said. For what? For saying that. About life not ending. I needed to hear it. Victoria looked at her and saw herself, a year ago, scared and alone and convinced she'd missed her chance. It's not ending, Victoria said. It's just beginning. Trust me. The woman smiled. I'll try. That's all you can do. That night, Victoria went home to Ethan's apartment. It wasn't hers officially, but it felt like home anyway. Lily was already asleep. Ethan was in the kitchen, washing dishes. How'd it go? He asked. Good, really good. Yeah? Yeah. She wrapped her arms around him from behind and rested her head on his shoulder. I've been thinking, she said. About what? About moving in. Officially. Ethan turned around. You serious? Yeah, I'm here most of the time anyway, and Lily keeps asking when I'm going to bring my stuff over, so I figured, why not? Ethan's face broke into a smile. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her. Okay, let's do it. Okay. But you're getting rid of that ridiculous couch, Victoria laughed. Deal. They stood in the kitchen, holding each other, and Victoria felt something she'd never felt before. Peace. the kind that came from knowing she was exactly where she was supposed to be. A year and a half after Victoria walked out of that board meeting, she stood in Morrison's cafe one last time. Not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. She sat at the corner table, alone, and looked around. The cafe hadn't changed. Same exposed brick, same Edison bulbs, same overpriced coffee. But she had. She wasn't the woman who'd walked in here, afraid and angry and convinced she was running out of time. She was someone new. Someone who'd learned that strength didn't mean never breaking. It meant breaking and choosing to rebuild anyway. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lily. "Dad says we're having tacos tonight. You better not be late." Victoria smiled and typed back, "I won't be." She finished her coffee, left a tip, and walked out into the rain. And as she walked, she thought about everything she'd learned. About success and failure. About love and loss. About the difference between being powerful and being whole. She'd spent her whole life trying to prove she was enough. Trying to earn a place at tables that didn't want her. Trying to win battles that didn't matter. But she didn't have to do that anymore, because she'd finally figured out the truth. She didn't need to prove anything, not to the board, not to Gerald, not to anyone. She just needed to show up, as herself, imperfect and messy and human. And that was enough. Victoria walked through the rain, heading home to a life she'd never planned but couldn't imagine living without. A life with Ethan and Lily and work that mattered and mornings that didn't start with dread. A life that had finally begun. And as she walked, she realized something. The world had been wrong. Her life hadn't ended at 48. It had just been waiting to start.